Hello, this is Max Rodersman from Does It Matter and Why? And today we're joined by Craig Kelly, who is back from Georgia, and it's November 12th, and we're going to do a wrap up. So, Craig, welcome back.
Thanks, Max. It's good to be home.
So, first, just take us through why you went down there in the first place.
So, I wanted to get involved in Georgia elections, Max, because I got sick of just writing checks. Not that money's not important, but at some point, I think I personally felt the need to be physically involved. I called myself the Mark Twain Brigade. As you might know, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens bought their way out of fighting in the Civil War, because you could do that back then. And I just felt that it was important to physically be there on the ground at a crucial moment in American history, at what many people consider to be ground zero for the future of American democracy. I wanted that to be my legacy to myself, if nothing else. So I went down there to essentially stand up for democracy, small d democracy.
And so, what were your expectations?
Well, going down, Max, and I wasn't the only one. Everyone I said I was going down, they're like, oh my God, Craig, be safe, be careful, come back alive. I expected I called it bumpy, but, hectic, edging on violence experience. And that wasn't an unreasonable expectation given not just what we see in various news articles, but really what has happened. The January 6th insurrection, the attempted kidnapping of the governor of Michigan, and even while I was down there, the violent assault on Mr. Pelosi, the Speaker of the House's husband. So this backdrop of violence, combined with voter intimidation and poll worker intimidation by Republicans like Giuliani, this backdrop of violence really framed everyone's expectations for what I would personally experience down there.
But you didn't experience them.
No, it turns out, and the people that did our training, we were very well trained for this work. The people that did our training said, listen, you got to be prepared for all these things, the intimidation, the guns, the whatever that might show up. But honestly, we don't know if it's going to show up, and the best day is a boring day. They call it a yawn burger. What I had was a lot of yawn burgers.
And was there a change in Georgia laws that might have impacted things or did impact things or
There were a bunch of changes in Georgia law, two different changes by law, but they made a variety of different impacts. And we focused on them during our training. And it's things like no line warming, which meant if you had a long line of voters in the past, someone could give them water, someone could give them food, maybe umbrellas if it was raining or whatever. That sort of line warming became illegal under new state law. Different ID requirements, that sort of thing. Turns out that I never saw a line, not that they didn't exist, but the 10 places I went to, the almost 3 weeks I was at polling booths, I never saw a line that exceeded 30 minutes. I only saw a few people turned away because of ID issues. People showed up to vote, drove into the parking lot, got out of their cars, and overwhelmingly, they were going to vote with absolutely no problem.
so what did you learn about the process? Like what was your typical day or what are the elements if somebody wants to understand how the process works?
That's an important thing for people to understand, Max, because most of us, when we go vote, we're there however long we wait in line, and then the voting itself takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes. You check in, someone checks your name off here in Cambridge, they put a line through it on a piece of paper. You go to the polling booth, you cast your vote, and then you leave. You don't realize that there's a massive amount of work that goes into making that experience so smoothly for you. You have professionals that are full-time at the elections commissions, and then you've got people that come in just for the various elections. And in Georgia, I was mostly in Cobb County. Cobb County was just funneling election workers through this training on a constant basis while I was down there. All sorts of different trainings for different people. They had temp agencies that were handling a specific part of the voting, the check-in part in Cobb County. And they had electricians and other people going out and making sure that the electrical circuits for the different polls were working. They had people that had to make sure that the handicapped access was there. They gave the poll managers different types of equipment, tape, polls, things like that, to mark off where voters should go. So when the voters showed up, it was a very smooth, well-organized experience because there's an immense amount of background work that people do full-time, in the case of the full-time employees for the election commissions, and then also people do part-time. They get paid $11 an hour, something like that, to come and do that sort of work. So the background work, it's sort of like when you get on an airplane and go from point A to point B. It's wicked smooth, but it's only smooth because you have an entire organization designed to make it that way. Same thing with voting. Massive amount of work went into making that voting experience smooth.
So even though you expected potential violence and other sort of voting suppression, you didn't see it. But what's your feeling today? Is it still a worry for you?
It's a real worry for me, Max. Sometimes I think Republicans and the rest of the world are playing a different game when it comes to elections than when it comes to politics. So the Democrats, and I was down there with the Democratic Party, I was a credentialed poll watcher, not a worker, but a watcher. We're concerned that people get to vote. I never asked anyone who they voted for or what party they were from. I was down there to help them manage ID challenges, not at the poll, but they showed up and they forgot their ID, or maybe they weren't registered, or maybe they were registered in the next county, something like that. I was there to help people vote. There were Republican poll watchers. They weren't there for that. They were there to sort of monitor the equipment somehow, as if they knew what they were doing, to map out the polling places, again, as if somehow that was relevant to what they were doing. I really don't know what they were up to. And Republicans are not stupid people. So I can only think that they're playing a longer-term game of how do they, given their lack of any sort of political majority in terms of voters, how do they impact the process, not at the polling booth, but maybe afterwards, or maybe online, or maybe before. And that's, I think, where the next struggle for democracy is going to be had. It's going to be digital, and we see digital struggles all the time in other places. No reason why it won't extend to actual voting.
Okay, well, that's a great recap. And of course, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this subject in the future. So thanks.
All right, Max, thanks a lot. And democracy is something that we should not take for granted, and I very much appreciate your interest in it.
Oh, thank you. You're the one that went down.
I did indeed, and I appreciate your supporting me.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.